Welcome
That's
to
right.
another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. Today, I am delighted to welcome a new guest to the show. Stuart Cain is the charity owner and founder of Ada's Foundation, Hits One Global founder as well in terms of physical health, father, part of Alliance member of the year 2023. Welcome to the podcast, my guy.
Hello, welcome to. Thank you for the welcome. That's what I meant. I was going to say welcome to you. Thank you for the welcome.
You're welcome to your own
Yeah,
podcast.
welcome to your own podcast. That's a good start. But
I
yeah, no, thank you. I massively appreciate you giving me a chance to talk to your listeners and
Mate,
to
I mean, we
you.
we we were breaking shit down before I click record, and there's going to be some challenging conversation today, and I think it's important to warn the listeners about how challenging some of the conversation can be today. But let's go straight into your story, mate. You are not a killer in terms of you've killed somebody, but in terms of your
Yeah,
mentality, in terms of how you've handled life, in terms of the scenario that you've been dealt, you are a charity owner for Ada's Foundation, yeah?
yeah. Aegis Foundation. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Tell
daughter's
us a
name,
little
AD.
bit about how that's come about, mate, and a little bit about your story, because I know this is going to create some kind of conversation today for sure.
Yeah, so if I rewind back, like my first of all, my partner Jodie, she's my partner. We've been together 10 years, and we've had a pretty challenging relationship, like most people have. Different things happening all through. Um, Jodie is like she wants to be a mum. She wants to be a mum. That's kind of her main aim, and or was her main aim. And we, for 7 years of our relationship, didn't think we could have a child. We never, we didn't fall pregnant. We weren't, we tried for a baby. We went through tests. Nothing was wrong. We just kind of thought, well, we're not going to fall pregnant. December 2019, so maybe 6 years into our relationship, we 5 years into our relationship, so we fell pregnant and unfortunately lost our baby through miscarriage at 12 weeks, December the 11th, 2019. Going through a pretty tough time in our relationship. I'm not going to lie at that point for other reasons as well. And to be honest, that moment when we lost that baby, that made me realize I did want to be a dad. Like I'd always been happy with the idea of being a dad, but it was like, shit, I really want this.
Mm.
We went into COVID, kind of forced Jodie and I to work on ourselves, work on our relationship. Actually, I know this is probably coming from a place of privilege, but COVID, the first lockdown, that was actually really great for me and Jodie, really great for us. Without its challenge, not without its challenges, but
Of course.
and we kind of then went through the next 2 years, kind of thinking, right, well, let's try and have a baby. Nothing happened. Thinking, right, it's just not for us. Like, it's not going to happen. It's just we're going to, we even started to talk down the route of a little bit about adoption, other options, and and then in August 2022, we fell pregnant completely unexpectedly. Um, got to 12 weeks, everything went to plan, kind of, and in our mind, barriers crossed. Like we passed the 12 weeks, we're out the danger zone, we're having a baby. Again, not without it, not without its worries and its fears, and it's like, holy
Of
shit, I've got to
course.
be I've got someone else to look after, possibly, not just myself. Um, and then if I fast forward then to December 2022, so we just had our 20-week scan. For those of you that aren't kind of aware of the kind of journey through pregnancy, 20 weeks a big scan. Looks for anomalies in babies, looks for health of the baby, growth, all of this kind of stuff, and it went swimmingly, went perfect, everything great. 1 week later, I remember it, early hours of a Saturday morning. We've been gone to bed like Friday nights aren't very rock and roll when your partner's pregnant and you're expecting a baby and it's the middle of winter anyway. So we got to bed about 10 o'clock. 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up to words you never really want to hear, I guess, is sure, I think my waters are broken. And we're at 21 weeks at this point. I'm like, what? Sure you haven't wet yourself? Like, etc. Kind of not being a dick about it, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah, yeah.
we,
I
we, we we rang
understand.
the hospital. Jodie was unsure what was going on. No other signs of like labor or anything. She just like had like this leak kind of thing. Um, and we went to the hospital 3 o'clock in the morning. They said it looks like your waters are gone, but there's no other sign of labor. There's no like kind of sit tight. Got put in a delivery suite. It was obviously a Saturday, so we kind of had consultants coming in, got a scan, found out we didn't know what gender our baby was going to be at this point. Found out and that the waters had gone. Our baby still had a heartbeat, and they were holding on kind of just under their chin to a little bit of the fluid. So kind of at that point, consultants are saying, if you can get to Monday, like 40 hours away, then I'm cautiously optimistic that we can get fetal medicine involved and we can get your baby to 24 weeks, and it won't be without problems, but and I hate this word, but the baby is viable at 24 weeks. I hate that word viable, but it's the medical term for it.
Yeah, yeah. And
So we kind of
to
go on.
explain that, sorry, mate, to explain that,
Yeah.
does that basically mean that it's fully formed, fully ready
Yeah.
to?
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, survival babies are unlikely to survive if they're born before 24 weeks. There has been some like 23 weeks. We've heard, 23 weeks is kind of the not the world record, but you know what I mean? Like the kind of
Yeah, the
very
minimum.
earliest. And
Yeah.
and the baby's fully formed. It's just what I've since learned is that one of the things that the last, as well as growing, obviously growing in size, the lungs are what need to develop in those later stages, in the last kind of sort of 15 weeks of pregnancy. It's the lungs. And so we were told that even if the baby was born and was born alive, there would be problems. But, we were cautiously optimistic. And I remember it really clearly. And I don't mean to make this flippant, but, sometimes a bit of humor and a bit dark, just how we deal with things. And I remember it really clearly because it was the Qatar World Cup. It was England-France quarterfinals, 7 o'clock that night. And they'd said to Jodie, if you don't get ill or go into labour before Monday morning, fetal medicine in Birmingham, we're about 45 minutes away from Birmingham. We can get them involved, but let's just try and keep the baby in there for now. And I remember opening my laptop, Jodie in the hospital bed next to me. She's fine, but obviously we've kind of talked all day. Open it, national anthem's on. They come in to do a check on Jodie, and she spiked the temperature. And I'm thinking, you've done that on purpose. You don't want me to watch the football. Kind of, we had a bit of a joke because she wasn't feeling ill. And they moved us into another room at this point. And unbeknownst to us at that point, that was the bereavement suite. It's known as the bereavement suite at the hospital, in the maternity kind of delivery area of the hospital. But to me, it had a TV. I was like, oh, amazing. I don't have to watch the football on my laptop. I can watch it on the TV. England lost. Jodie got started that night to get pretty poorly. Like, I kept seeing people coming into the room with big cases that said like sepsis pathway and all this kind of scary stuff. And I'm thinking, shit, like what's going on? What's happening? And overnight, I went back home to get some stuff because Jodie was quite out of it. She was on painkillers and antibiotics and all sorts of stuff going on. And at this point, I don't really recall going, oh no, my baby's gonna be born early. I don't recall that being a massively clear thought in my head. It's just like, this ain't going right. Sunday morning, about 8 o'clock, Jodie started to kind of get cramps, pains, labour. And again, weirdly, we both kind of napped on and off that morning. Like we were knackered, just falling asleep in this room. I was on a sofa, Jodie's on a hospital bed. And I remember again really clearly, and I will give like a bit of a warning before I say this, but yeah, it's a little bit graphic. But all I heard from Jodie, I fell asleep. It was about 25 past 3, I think. Stuart, get someone, I can see a leg. That was Jodie's words to me. And our baby had started to be born. We called in a midwife, like pulled the thing. Midwife, 5 minutes later, I'm holding our baby who wasn't breathing, wasn't alive. She never took a breath. Now, well, I will say that was single most beautiful and single most saddest moment of my life. It totally made sense to me why all of the dads I've ever met, all of the parents I've ever met say you can't describe the feeling of when you hold your baby, like this amazing feeling. And it was like, to me, it's not all bad. It was horrific in a sense that my baby wasn't alive. I was actually scared that I was going to be disgusted by what I saw. And the reason for that was in December 2019, when we had our miscarriage, I saw that miscarriage. I saw what the miscarriage looked like. And again, not too graphic, but it doesn't look really like a baby. Like at that point, it doesn't look anything like a baby. But actually, our little girl who we called Ada, she looked just like a normal baby. The only thing was her eyes were fused shut. They haven't opened at that part of gestation. And she was very small. Well, bigger than we thought she'd be, but she was small. Like she was less than a pound in weight. Quite long. Like when I held her, she kind of was long. Like we were told to expect her to fit in the palm of my hand. She was longer than that. And then kind of we were in hospital for another 6 days. We got to keep Ada with us in a little cold cot they have them there where they've got a cooled mattress, and like the team at our hospital were incredible. Like the care we got was incredible. Nothing was too much considering the NHS is stretched to its maximum. People were spending an hour and a half just talking to us, not medical care, nothing, just like being there for us. And then probably the most difficult moment was on the Friday, so that happened on the Sunday. On the Friday, we had to say goodbye. Jodie was ready to leave hospital. You can't stay in there forever. And probably the most heartbreaking part for me, the worst bit of it all for me, was I'd left the hospital a few times to go and get bits and pieces. Jodie had been with Ada the entire time, and Jodie having to say goodbye to her daughter and not take her home. And it was the last time we are ever going to see her because the next time we'd see her would be in her little casket for her funeral. That I can still picture. I've got a picture of it on my phone, but I can still picture Jodie's hands over the top of this little crib, just destroyed, like just destroyed, because this was her dream. This was her lifelong goal, was to be a mum. Jodie lost her mum in 2018 as well, so it was a becoming a mum, especially like everybody always says it. I don't care what I have as long as I'm healthy. Jodie really wanted a girl. Like she would have been happy with a boy, but she wanted a girl because then she could rebuild a relationship that she no longer could have with her mum because her mum wasn't here, that was pretty tough. I'm not going to lie, and um, kind of the way the charity came out, I can continue that story in a bit, but the way the charity came about was the care we got from a medical point of view and from what I call like a pastoral point of view, like mentally, was world class, absolutely world class. What we couldn't have, and the NHS can't do this, is what we couldn't get was what I would call practical support. Now, I feel really honored, privileged, lucky, whatever you want to call it, that Jodie and I, we have a car, we have some disposable income, not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but we have some disposable income. My mum and dad live literally a 7-minute walk from the hospital. So anything we needed, we could get. I could jump in the car, go to Tesco, and things I'm talking here, really practical. Some baggy pajama bottoms, some big pants. Like our first world problems, but our electric toothbrushes ran out of charge. Mum came round with normal toothbrushes just from home. A puzzle book for Jodie to occupy her mind. Little things, basic stuff like lip salve, like balm stuff, lip salve, hair bobbles, hair brushes. I could either go home and get stuff or go to the shop. Now, I'm very aware there's going to be people who don't have a partner, ladies who don't have a partner in that situation, couples who don't have a car, don't have any disposable income. And to me, I just sat there and thought, imagine going through that without like some real basic home comforts. It didn't make it better. It just made it more comfortable. And so we kind of, this idea was born of, why don't we raise money and make sure that no one has to not have those basic things? And but like as luck would have it, kind of in the August before that, December, two people had a similar thing happen with their baby boy, George, and they had the same idea. And when I approached the hospital in the early part of 2023, the next year, to sort this out, we got put in touch with this couple, Ben and Martha, who we're now really good friends with, who lost their boy George, and they were in the process of putting together the same thing. So now we work with them. That's not all we do, but to supply boxes. In the year that Ada was born and George were born, 89 families in Telford used that suite because they had a baby born anywhere from like sort of roughly speaking 16 weeks gestation through to full term and the baby being stillborn or not making it. And so that's what we started to do. We were doing some other stuff. We're expanding what we do as a charity, but that's kind of where it was born. And yeah, that was the situation. And there's no sugarcoating it. It was really shit. But I guess I had a choice at that point. Do I let life be shit, or do I try? I was 40 at the time. I hope I got another 40 or 50 years to go. I don't want to be spending 40 or 50 years. My life will never be the same. Like anyone who goes through grief, life is never the same, but it doesn't have to be shit.
I think the first thing from all of that is the older you get, the more you realize, even for me, right? I'm single now, but I've seen my friends go through like pregnancies, relationships, all of those
Yeah.
kind of things. And it's not until you get to a certain age, like late 20s, early 30s, that you start hearing conversations about people that might be trying and it not quite working. And then you're like, hold on a minute, like this baby making thing when you're younger, just when you get told about it, right? It's like you do this and then that happens. And
Yeah,
it
absolutely. Yeah.
genuinely isn't that simple. There are so many things along the way that could cause a potential bump in the road with regards to pregnancy. Did that realization hit you when you were trying for the baby first, or was it something that you kind of had a rough idea around and
I
then?
think, yeah, I think I just assumed, like both my brothers are younger than me. They had babies. My oldest nephew is 7. Yeah, and then I've got 3 nephews and a niece, and they're between 7 and 3 years old. I was one of 3 boys. And I'd always, and I don't know now with hindsight and a bit of wisdom and age and things, I was always sort of saying to Jodie, and I was previously married before that, but in previous relationships, like, I'd love to have a child, but like, there's no, like, if we don't, then there's loads of stuff we can do.
Mm,
Like, we can go traveling more. And actually, I've got Jodie to be grateful for lots of things. But for something in particular, he said, well, why do we have to have one or the other? Like, why can't we travel, do the things we love, but do it with a child? And I think maybe I was protecting myself from the thought of, like, there's definitely an element, and this isn't a male thing, this is just people, of, am I a failure because I can't have a child? Like, have I failed in what, like, in the end, I guess when you think about it, really, kind of basically, that's what life is about, the continuation of life. I'm not saying that everybody should have children. It's a very personal decision, but I don't know if I was protecting myself a little bit from, what if it's me? And we had tests, like, there was nothing, in inverted commas, wrong with either of us. There's nothing they could see that was a problem. Um, and I think I was possibly trying to protect myself from that. And it was only then when we had that miscarriage, 11th of December 2019, that I thought, shit, I'm really, I wanted this. Now, I could have in that stage gone, I'm relieved almost. That sounds awful, but okay. And then I would have known I didn't want to be a dad, but I really knew I did. And I say then on 11th of December, madly, these things happen on the same day, 3 years apart, 11th of December. It's a mad one, completely by chances. But it made me go, like, well, 2 things. One, I still really wanted to be a dad. But something that really got to me was people kept saying to me, "You're a dad now." When Ada was born, "You're a dad now." And I was like, I'm not. I fathered a child who didn't make it. I've never had the opportunity to be a dad. And
mm.
I actually think, again, with a lot of reflection, a lot of thinking, Ada's foundation gave me the ability to be Ada's dad and actually do things for her, like allow her to have an impact on the world. I spoke to a friend on the day she was born, or the day after she was born, and I said, one of the things I'm really struggling with is, we've all had grief of some sort in our life. Well, pretty much all of us have. I've lost my grandparents. Um, I haven't thankfully lost anyone else close to me, Jodie's mum and things, but no one really close to me, other distant family and things like that. And the one thing that stood out to me from grief with my grandparents was I had memories, amazing memories with all of them, of things we'd done, places we'd been, things they said to me. And you can cling on to those things through grief. Doesn't make the grief any easier, but you can cling on to those things. I had nothing with Ada. I had nothing to cling on to. There was no memories. There was no anything. When you've become pregnant, all your head comes to is, we're having a baby. What school are they going to go to? What gender are they going to be? Are they going to please support Tottenham? All of those kind of things. Are they
Poor
going to be into
girl.
rugby and football? I know, poor her. But what stood out to me was Ada's potential. I was like, she could have been the captain of the Lionesses. She could have been the woman that cured cancer, the first woman on the moon, all those cliche things. And she never got the chance.
Mm,
So for me, one of my biggest values is to have an impact on people. That's why I run Hitsona. That's why I part of the foundation. That's why it's just one of my highest values. And I thought to myself, well, maybe Ada's very existence, even though it was never on this earth as a living human being, maybe that can be a force for impact and a force for change. And I talked about it a lot with some of the charity events I did last year to raise money with people we were going on. They said, you do realize without your daughter, we wouldn't be talking on this 3 Peaks challenge. We wouldn't be, when I did the big challenge with Matt Brindley, we wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have been pushed out of my comfort zone. Matt wouldn't have been pushed out of his comfort zone to an extent we never believed possible if it wasn't for my daughter. And that, again, to me, is a massive comfort, might be the right word, or massive positive to my daughter not being here, because there are positives. Like, we've impacted a load of lives now. And if Ada was here right now, don't get me wrong, I'd swap it in a heartbeat. But if Ada was here now, maybe I wouldn't have had that impact. So I don't know. That's maybe just my, again, protecting myself or something, to think of it like that. But that helps me mentally for sure.
yeah, it's unreal. And to come away from it with that mindset. And the last guest I had on the show, actually, Brad Ricks, we did a really good face-to-face episode on like not playing the victim to life circumstances. And I said to Brad in that episode, the victim word can be taken as an insulting thing to some people who aren't quite used to it. But and yet he explained it really well as regards to it isn't necessarily you describing somebody as a victim to life. It's just the state that they are in at that point. Was there any point in that moment when your daughter was born and unfortunately she didn't make it in that circumstance where you could have gone fuck it and drifted into poor like a real like
Yeah.
negative mentality?
Mhm.
Like the word for it definitely would be some form of like low mood depression kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad mental health. Yeah, yeah. Well, there was two real moments that stand out to me, or three real moments that stand out to me. The first one was when Jodie was in labour before Ada had been born. And I have somebody in my business life, business partner, mentor, involved in Hitsona, who I'm very close with, and I've been very close with from the day we opened our business. And he's an amazing man, and he's a bit older than me. He's got 5 children, and he said to me, "Oh, sorry." I messaged him and told him what was going on. He was like, "I cannot put my head in where you are. Like,
Mm,
I can't compute, but I'm here if you need to talk to me." And I just said, the one thing I can't get my head around is I'm not religious in any way. It's just not for me. I was brought up as a Catholic, like as a child, but I'm just not religious. Cool to people who are. It's not my thing. And I said, but I do believe that what everybody says about the universe, what the universe gives you. And I said, I believe I do a lot of good. I've done a lot of bad in my life, but my business helps people. I often bend over backwards in my business, at my own financial costs, etc., to make sure people are getting great value, are getting the help they need, are getting the transformation they need. And I don't want any plaudits for that at all. That's not, I don't do it for that. I do it because I love seeing people get results. And I believe I'm generally a good person, and I'm kind, I'm polite, etc. And this is the way the universe gives it back to me. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, that's not fair. And this guy said to me, he said, you might think I'm a dick for this. Like, you might like just take it as you want to, but human beings try to attach meaning to everything. We
mm,
try and attach a meaning. We try and attach. It's how our brains work. It's gives us significance. It gives everything. He said, I use this term really flippantly, but shit happens. Something bad has happened and is happening to you right now. There's no reason for it. There's no meaning to it. It just happens. And actually, what that led me down the path of thinking is, we're just mammals. There is runts of the litter. There are babies that don't make it. There are people who die. And just because we are a very advanced species and we have medicine and we have things that can help, what happened to Jodie and I was just nature. And I don't mean to belittle it, and I don't mean to belittle anyone that goes through it. It's horrific when you're in the pits of it. But that really helped me go, I'm not a victim of anything other than complete and utter nature. Not even bad luck, just nature. That's all I'm a victim of. And don't get me wrong, I didn't think that instantly. It helped in the moment because I knew that it was coming from a place of love from this person. But in my times where I've thought, I've journaled, I've pondered all this stuff, that's kind of helped me. And then the second and third part really was the timing of what happened. We had a week after we came out of hospital, we had a week before the Christmas break starts. Then we had the Christmas week where no one expects anything of you. You just eat cheese, drink wine, and forget what day it is, all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And then my business reopened on the 3rd of January. We were really fortunate. All of our members said, just take the week between Christmas and New Year, close the studio. We don't need sessions as much as you guys need to be with your family. Because, like, my mum, Ada's granny, is one of my coaches. So she was going through what she was going through. We are a really close knit. I'm not talking. We're not a 1,000-member gym. We've got 150 people here who I all count as my friends and extended family. It hurt them as well. It hurt them because they knew how much we wanted a baby. Because Jodie is the co-owner of the business with me. She coaches here, etc. So and those 2 weeks from when we came out of hospital till kind of the 1st, 2nd of January became very much staying up late, I wouldn't say Jodie didn't really drink because she was having to have injections every day and she didn't want to do them with a hangover. I wasn't drinking to excess, but I was having a few beers every night,
Mm.
going to bed late, watching shit on TV, not having to get up for anything, etc., etc. And I could see that drifting real. I could see like if it wasn't for the 3rd of January and having 150 people to be responsible for, I could do it, still be doing that right now, and I'd be in a lot worse a place, obviously. But then I noticed, so that was a moment for me where I was like, I can't be the victim. Can't. I've got to get on with life. Um, then I noticed I was, and I didn't notice this at the time. It was with a little bit of hindsight. I was working my balls off, really hard within the business, and then getting to a Saturday lunchtime and working on Saturday morning, getting to a Saturday lunchtime and going right. And I set myself a rule at the beginning of the year: no drinking at home. Like no drinking at home. That'll. And so I was going to the pub. And I'm not really a pub goer, but like the Six Nations were on and the football was on and all of that kind of stuff. And I'd go and I'd have a few beers. Sometimes it'd be more than others. And then Sunday would be a not right off to the point where I was, but it would just be I wouldn't do anything. Then I'd go at it hard from Monday again. And I remember it really clearly. It was like the back end of I'm pretty sure it was February, back end of February. Tottenham were playing, and I had a season ticket. Tottenham were playing West Ham at home, one of my favourite games to go to every year. And I was going with my friend, a really good friend of mine. We go down together, and I went and got pissed on the Saturday. And when I have a hangover, I'm terrible, like most people. My mental health shit, everything else. And I cancelled on him. And we were going on the train together. We were going to have a couple of beers, going on the train together. And he told me, I'm pissed off with you. He didn't like he knew what I was going through and things. And I actually said to him in that moment, I said, like, I need to stop drinking. Like, I need to have a bit of a reset here. Like, I feel like shit for what I've done to you and the fact I've had a skinful last night. And I just made the pledge then, right, I'm not going to drink for a little while. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, it's easy to say don't drink, but what, like, not why, but what's going to make me not drink? And that's when I set like the Three Peaks challenge, the challenge for the 20 Reeking challenge thing in September. And it gave me something to train for. It gave me a purpose because it was to raise money for my daughter's charity. And people had started donating. And then I like felt like I owed people to stick to my word. And don't get me wrong, I've had a drink since. I did about 60 or 70 days, but that
Mm.
was just the reset I needed. That was all I needed. I that was what I needed to be back in control, so to speak. So now I can go to the pub and have a couple, or if I want a night out, I can have a night out, or if I want to have a couple of beers tonight watching England, I can. But at that time, it was very unhealthy. It wasn't in the week, it was just that Saturday, and that was, I think it was a coping mechanism of like, I didn't want to just go and sit after a really busy week because then I was forced to confront my feelings and confront everything else. And actually, I've realized that just sitting with my feelings isn't for me.
Mm.
I need to be doing things, going for walks, going on hikes, working out, doing podcasts, like talking to the maternity department. That is my thinking. That is my therapy. And that's again been a massive lesson for me.
I think the part of my coaching program is we speak about the never ending circle. And
Hmm.
I'm sure like Paul's done some form of alteration on this. And it starts with like whatever decision you make at the top, you've got a choice of making a good or a bad decision. The feeling that follows that, if you make a good decision, it's going to be a good feeling. Make a bad
Hmm.
decision, it's going to be a bad feeling. Then it comes to the result that you get from like that feeling. So make good decision, make a good decision, then you get a good feeling at the end of it, and then you get a good result. And then if you
Yep.
do the opposite, you get a bad result, which then leads to a shit feeling, which then will lead to another bad decision. And then the circle
100%.
just
Hundred
fucking
percent.
flips
Yeah.
around. And as soon as
Yeah.
you and I'm even guilty of it now. I said to Paul, like there was a moment in the last quarter where and there is a reason why I'm saying this. There was a moment where for 10 days, 2 weeks, I was avoiding doing all of the shit that I know makes me a high fucking performing, like
Yep.
I say, I'm going to use athlete in the loosest terms possible, podcaster,
Yeah.
friend, family
Yeah.
member, all of those things. I just
Yeah.
dropped it,
Yeah.
and then I could just feel like my reactions to things were getting more grumpy. So obviously the feelings were not where they
Yeah.
should be. And then you question it and you're like, why am I doing this? And then basically where I'm going with this is all of it can be stopped at the top. the top of that
Yep.
circle, the start point of that circle where you have a decision to make. Is this decision going to be beneficial for me right now? Yes or no? And if the
Yep.
answer is no, maybe we need to be looking at a more positive decision.
Yeah. And I 100% agree. And I'd even take it a step further and say investigating, again, it's hard to do this in a moment, but for me, when I came out of that little bit of a cycle, those 2 or 3 moments is like, for me, what was I searching for? Because I wasn't getting Ada back, and I certainly wasn't going to get her back at the bottom of a beer can or at 3 o'clock in the morning, late night when I'm playing on a PlayStation or watching shit on TV. She wasn't coming back. And actually, it, I know the feeling I was actually looking for was the feeling of me being significant and Ada being significant. And so weirdly, if I was working my nuts off all week at work and everyone was going, I can't believe you're doing this, like despite what's happened. And then like going out and having a few drinks at the weekend and that kind of thing. Like I was significant to people. I was significant, like I'm butchering this explanation. But
No,
then I
you're
realized
not. It makes total sense. Yeah.
if I set myself some mad challenge and ask people to sponsor me and raise money, and it's because it's for something so close, couldn't be closer to my heart. Like I'm going to be really significant, and I will not lie. Like one of the things, 2023 could be up there with the best years of my life, and it was the year directly preceding losing my daughter. The one man of the year, like to be in that environment and win that man of the year in Paul Mort's coaching, from to be given it by somebody who saved my life
Mm.
in front of like a group of people who who I admire with all my heart and all my brain and everything, and to beat some people to that award who, in my mind, are performing way higher than me. That was again significance, but it was also a massive amount of pride to raise 10 grand for my daughter. We fell pregnant again, and our baby is here, thankfully. Always forget the good news on that. But
Yeah, no, I was gonna. I was building up, mate. I'm so buzzing. I was going through your profile today, and I was like, man, like I just
yeah,
can't. This like a huge setback, just set you up for
well, yeah,
this moment
yeah.
now, right? Yeah.
And it's massive. And don't get me wrong, it was not without its challenges. And this is another area I've had to accept that. Like Jodie last year really struggled, and it's very different. Like she said to me, I've always been, especially since working with Paul, all about setting goals, all about having outcomes we're working towards, and I've always struggled. Jodie and I are like chalk and cheese. She is laid back, completely laid back. I'm like 100 ideas, 100 miles an hour, and we kind of balance each other out quite well. She'd fall asleep if I didn't pull her forward, and I'd rush off and do 10 million reckless things if she didn't hold me back. And I've always tried to get her on board with setting goals. Like, why don't you have a goal? Like, why don't you want to aim for something? She's like, I just don't. And she said so, and again, it was like the second heartbreaking moment that Jodie did to me. It was like it was after New Year, and I sat there and I was saying, I think I've got my like goals sorted for the year. I think I know what I'm going to work towards. And Jodie just piped up out of nowhere. She said, I've realised why I really struggle to set goals when you try and get me to do it, Stu. And she's bought journals before. She's listened to some of Paul's stuff. She's not shy from doing that. And she just said it's because I've only got one goal, and that's to be a mum. And like I was like, fuck, like that's hit me like because I can't. I can only speak as a man because it's all I've ever been. But I couldn't do anything. I was powerless to help her. Like everybody else in my life, I'm helping them hit their goals. The most important person in my life, I couldn't. And I hadn't failed, but our attempt had failed. And
Mm.
there was like, I kept writing in my journal, what's my family goal? Become a dad. I was like, what? Without getting too crass, there's only one thing I can fucking do. like it's not like a goal where I go, right, I'm going to run a marathon, right? Okay, I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
train on this, I can do. And yeah, probably could I have reduced Jodie's stress? Could I have helped out more? Of course I could. But that hit me and I was like, flip, like, oh, I can't do anything about that. But then, like, seeing Jodie as a mum now, it blows my mind. Like, I'm so grateful. I didn't pick her. We picked each other, I guess. But like, I've got somebody who, whatever happens with me and her, my son has, I know everyone will probably say this, but just the best mum.
Yeah,
like the
unreal.
best person. And then everyone's going to probably say that about their partners, but Jodie is very maternal. I can see from now, it's like she is living now her lifelong dream, and that's amazing.
That is that taking a bit of pressure off you? Do you think?
It's a massive learning curve. It's a massive learning curve. Um, I guess I have. So Monday, I wrote in my journal, "What could you have done better today?" And I said, I wrote, "I was a shit dad and partner today because I wasn't very. I was. I'm in the balance of like I want to spend time with Albie and Jodie, but I also my way of contributing is also to bring money in and make our business successful. But I've got to get the balance right because I don't want when I'm on my deathbed and I'm talking to Albie and he's 30 years old, I don't want him to go, well, I know he won't say, Dad, watching Spurs on a 80-inch TV was amazing. He'll go, kicking a football around the garden in our Spurs kit was the thing. Or watching TV, watching Spurs with you on your tiny little like phone was the highlight. So I've got to be very aware that it's not just about me providing money. I've got to be able to give Jodie the support so she can be the amazing mum. She's the natural parent of the two of us for sure. But also, I'm trying to kind of get my head around that. Like, this is just an event. Like, it's life. There's no like rule book. There's no way to like the key. And I believe Jodie and I, this is the key to our success as a couple, and why. A lot of people said to us, be careful about like when you lose it, like when we lost Ada, be careful that like you two don't lose your relationship with this because it can happen. Your life can become dominated by grief and by the thing that you've lost. But the one thing for all of our faults, and we have a lot, is Jodie and I do communicate. We don't tend to let things fester and Jodie go after 4 weeks. Well, you've been shit at this, you haven't done, or vice versa. Like it's very clear that this quarter's goals needed to involve 2 days off the business, whether it's 4 half days, whether it's 1 half day, sorry, 2 half days and a whole day. And I am religiously sticking to that. And Jodie knows that if I don't, she has the full license to say, well, Stu, you're not kind of, you said you'd be around here. Like, if you say you're going to be here on Friday morning, don't then go book a podcast or a phone call or a consultation or a workout. Be here.
Yeah, I love it.
And again, and also for me, it's a big adjustment for me is like just doing nothing. I know I'm holding my baby and I know I'm comforting him and like talking to him and stimulating him when he's awake. But sometimes I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not used to just sitting here with a baby. Well, sitting here doing nothing. I'm always doing something. And that's a big adjustment for me, but an exciting one. An
Yeah.
exciting one.
In your bit at the start, you said, and I think it's really interesting to get your perspective on it. You said around you've been with your current partner, Jodie, now 10 years, and obviously you've been through some insane ups and
Yeah.
downs, but you said you've been through your challenges as well. I think it's
Yeah.
a great question, a good opportunity for me to ask you, what do you think has allowed you, apart from communication, because you've already mentioned that, what has allowed you to come through all of those challenges and get through to the other side? Because we are in an age where everything seems to be kind of disposable, disposable
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah.
People just give up on things as such. So what do you think's
Yeah.
made you come through the other side of those challenges?
I think that's a great question. That's a really great question. That's why you
Well,
do what you do.
yeah, right.
That's why you've done 160 episodes. Was it 160? I
Yeah,
think you
yeah,
said.
you got it.
Yeah,
Well
wow.
remembered, mate. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
161 this one. Yeah.
Yeah, so communication, number one. I think one of the things, and I've learned this from Jodie because I wasn't very good at this myself, is we don't owe each other making each other happy. I don't owe Jodie happiness. She doesn't owe me happiness. We have to take charge of that ourselves, and then we'll be happy together. Or if we're not happy together, we know that it's not right. Like if Joe, one of the things because again, I'm very much like, I've got to make other people happy. I've got to like get results for other people. I've got to help people achieve their goals. That's not the dynamic you need in a relationship. And like I remember really clearly, Jodie's very much a quiet person. We'll often have these things where we'll go to appointments, medical appointments, and I'll ask like 10 questions, of which 9 were utter bullshit and 1 was good. Whereas Jodie will go 3 days later, shit, I wish I'd asked that. She's very much like a ponderer, takes time to take things in. She's not a, yeah. I mean, she always says about when we with the sales function within our business, she's like, I can't do it because I can't think on the spot like you. Whereas sometimes I'll do things and it'd be like, shit, like I've caused myself a problem 3 weeks down the line by not thinking that one through. Never purposely, but that's just the way it is. And so I remember Jodie used to always sit really quietly, and I'd be like, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What have I done? What have I done?" And like it got to the point where that for Jodie, that was almost like, "Can't deal with this. Like I don't want some like." And I had to learn that just because she was quiet, because when I'm quiet, it normally means something's wrong. But that's not the same with her. And the same things don't have to make us happy. You have to have stuff in common. I think another thing, and this is on Jodie, like this is and this is not. I don't even know if she'll listen to this, so I can say so. But Jodie has an insane amount of strength. Like she's very stoic, very like she doesn't let too much get her too high. And she might feel really low, but she never lets it stop her. Just from like functioning in life. Like I never had any worries that she was going to go off the rails after we lost Ada. I was never worried that she was going to go off the rails after she lost her mum. Yes, she struggled, but she was very strong and there and there was moments where we were very close to breaking up and I remember one conversation and like uh, Jodie said to me, despite everything, and this is not me blowing smoke up my own ass. This was just a massive realization for me that when you talked about kind of disposable and throw away and like, oh, we can always find someone else. This is the moment where I realized you can't necessarily. And Jodie just said to me, like, despite everything, I wouldn't want anyone else to be the dad of my child. And like that to me was like a kick in the bollocks, smack in the teeth, a pat on the back, everything at once. And that conversation was actually what prompted me to get my shit together. I started working with Paul, 2019 kind of time. It was after we'd had our miscarriage. And I think from Jodie's perspective, seeing that I'm trying to improve, seeing that I am working on myself. And like I think a lot of men can go, no, I make my decisions, I do it this way. Jodie needs to see me doing that and being decisive, but she needs to see it's also from listening to her, I think,
Yeah.
in that I'm taking action based on what she's noticed and what she sees, because she's a very, very good judge of character. She's a very good judge of what's going on. Like she's very shrewd. And that's a bit of a garbled answer to it all there. But I think, and I also think, just like the last thing, and again, Jodie taught me this because I was always like, I'm really ambitious. I want like a business that's going to make me millions and billions of pounds, and I want to do this, all this traveling things. And I always said to Jodie, how can you be so unambitious? That was what I like you don't have that. And she said, why is ambition a good thing? And I was like, holy shit. What if it is a really bad thing? Or what if it has bad sides? And again, Paul then reinforced that years later when he was talking about every positive having a negative, every negative having a positive. And I was like, hold on a second. Why am I trying to pin this ambition thing on just because I'm a business owner, on my partner and on myself as if it's like the only way to be? And actually, I don't need my business to make a whole load of money now. I want Albie to have a great life. I want to do stuff. But actually, I get more value in my life from somebody saying, thank you for helping me change my life than I do from them giving me an extra X amount of money.
Yeah.
And again, Jodie made me really sit up and take notice when she said, why is it amazing that you've got ambition and not good that I haven't? Like, and actually right now, I couldn't be happier. Like we're sitting there with our little boy. I've got the freedom to do some of the things I want. Yeah, of course I could make more money. I could grow my business and I want to, but just realizing that life can be good or like you could just enjoy the moment, be good. It's good right now. Yeah, I still might want to achieve stuff, but it's pretty good right now.
So
You
it's
know,
so important to remember because a couple of things that resonate there with me, Stuart, are I've got mates that have been in long-term relationships and settled down and they've got their kids already and they've got their long-term partner already. And I'm like, how have I created my own life in a way that I have where I didn't want that early in my life, and then now obviously like I'm the same as you. It took me a little while to realize it, but I definitely do want to be a dad one day, whether it
yeah,
happens or not. I can be grateful either way, right? But I know that I would have a lot to give like a
yeah,
child, right? Like
yeah,
especially with what I know now.
Mm.
And then it gives you that kind of comparison frame, doesn't it? Like you kind of ask yourself, how has that person been okay with that life? And then you go, well, they're obviously like incredibly content with that life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't do that on the
Yeah.
surface. But then on the
Yeah.
flip side, they probably look at me and go, how comes Harry's not like got a long-term partner? How comes he's not had a
Yeah. Yeah.
kid yet? How comes he's not married yet? Why is he doing all of this that he's doing? And for sure, like the ambition thing, the second thing that resonated me with me there was like if the podcast starts getting hundreds of thousands to a million
Yeah.
downloads, I'm then being judged on my words by a million people, let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
10% or even if it's 1% of a million people, which is a I'm gonna butcher this, right?
1,000? Is it 1,000?
1,000 people. A
Yeah.
thousand
Yeah.
people aren't going to agree with what I'm saying.
No, 10,000 people.
10,000 people aren't going to agree
10,000
with what
people.
I'm
Yeah. There
saying.
we go.
So
Yeah.
like when you think of that, like it's
Think of the
insane.
impact of one person disagreeing with you now.
Yeah.
It still makes me go, oh shit, hold on. Have I pissed someone off? Have I upset? Like, that's my personality. So if 10,000 people were saying to me, like, no, you're talking shit,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's hard to take. But also, also, I think you touch on a really good point when you talk about like some of your friends being settled down, some of them not being. Like, would well, there's two sides to that that make me think like we can all be like happiness isn't just how do I describe this? Happiness isn't one thing. It's just an emotion. Anyway, it's like not a destination. It's not a thing that you can just have. I am now happy. Um, but it can look so many different ways. So like one person can have three children and been married since they were 18 and be super happy, despite the fact they never really had many nights out. They didn't live that and then someone could be 40, still living a Playboy lifestyle, and both be happy. It's not a direct like one or the other, but also something I struggled with a little bit, and again, it was maybe me just defending myself or having this suit of armor kind of thing. I was saying, oh man, I'm going to be an old dad. Like, so for frame of reference, my mum and dad had me and my brothers young. Dad
Mm.
was in the army. They had a house. They had the security to have children early. And my dad, I remember it really vividly. I went to a school that had a boarding facility because my dad was in the army, and I stayed at the boarding facility for 2 years whilst dad and mum were in Germany, and then they came back to Telford and settled. And I remember waiting with a friend who was in the same year as me, in year 11, and I was 15 at the time and my dad wasn't even 40. He was 38. He had me when he was 23. And my friend was 15, and his dad was older than my granddad. He was like 67 or something mad like that. And he
Wow.
looked 67. He looked old. Whereas my dad, like, he's younger than I was now. And so it blew my mind. I'm now thinking when Albie's 20, I'm going to be in my 60s. Like, I still play five-side football with my dad now. He's 63,
That's
64.
it. That's so good.
Yeah, still play five-a-side football with my dad. And I'm thinking about, oh my God, what like when Albie's 40, I might be dead. Like how, hopefully I'm not, I'm being in my 80s, but and hopefully I'll look after myself, but you never know what's going to happen. But then actually I thought to myself, what about all the benefits of being an older dad? Like I've got way more life experience than my dad had and again now I'm forever grateful. Like my mum and my dad are still together. I've got an amazing family. But like I've got a load of stuff going for me now that I think back to when I was 23. Holy shit, if I'd have had a child then. I don't think I'd have been a present father. I don't know if I'd know my child now. And that sounds horrific for me to say now because like nothing, even if Jodie and I did separate, nothing will stop me being Albie's dad. But like, and I think it's not everything happens for a reason. I hate that phrase. It's not everything happens at the right time either because I hate that phrase. It's just life kind of happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And because again, I could have forced and I could have ended up having a child in my previous relationship, but nothing against my ex-wife. I don't harbor any ill feelings towards her. We just didn't work. Like imagine if I'd had a child with her,
Yeah, right.
the right age, in inverted commas. Like I wouldn't be
I think
where I am now.
we could go spiritual with what we're talking about right now. It just is. That is
Yeah,
like it just is. That
yeah.
whatever happens, it just is. It
Happens. Yeah, yeah,
happens.
yeah,
And that doesn't necessarily mean shit happens because as soon as you say that, you're almost attaching a label to it.
yeah.
It's
Just
just
stuff happens.
yeah, yeah, just
Life.
stuff
Yeah,
happens. It
yeah,
is
yeah.
that is literally it. Yeah, mate.
Mm.
Honestly, this has been. unbelievable. I feel like we could carry on talking forever about this kind of stuff and your journey and whatnot. But I've got three questions that I'm going to wrap up the show with, mate. All right. You have been through what most people would perceive as an insanely challenging time in your life through multiple different reasons, and obviously the main one, the loss of Ada, and which has
Mm.
obviously created some positive things. But what are the three habits that you have continuously maintained to make sure that you have remained your 100% version of yourself?
Number one, absolute number one would be recognizing 3 or more wins a day. I very, very clearly remember on the day Ada was born. I've got an accountability group. I've had it since 2020 with some absolute amazing men who I am forever grateful for the support they gave me and have and still do give me. I'm talking people like Richard Crowe, Gary O'Mahony, I always pronounce his name wrong, Ryan McGill, Andy, people like that. Mike O'Prey, Ollie Pitts. I don't want to miss anything in case they shout at me. Have I said them all? And yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so anyway. I can't remember which names I said. And we put our priorities in a little video to each other every morning and every evening, what we hit with our priorities. We don't say our wins. And obviously, when we went into hospital with Ada, I said, look, I can't set any priorities, guys. Like, I can't set any priorities. I don't know what each day is going to take. But what I promise I'll do is every night I'll check in with 3 wins from today. And on the night that Ada was born, I put 3 wins in that group. And to me, that is huge because on the shittest, darkest, wankiest days of our lives, there's some really, if you can just take a time to recognize one positive, one win would be enough. I got to meet my daughter for one.
Mm.
Like, wow, what a win. Like, that is a win. Yeah, she wasn't with us, but like I did. And so that's one of them. Second of them, second habit I'd say for me is kind of on that topic, but journaling. Like, I know we're all disciples of journaling, but just taking a little bit of time to recognize what what our day it needs to happen, what has happened, what could have we done better, what went well today. And then the third habit, and I don't know a succinct way to put this, you can maybe relate it to football because that's my sport, but however bad it's going and like however shit you're playing, keep showing for the ball, keep being brave, keep turning up, and good things will happen. Like Bellingham played terrible against Slovakia, didn't stop him. Like that overhead kick could have gone into Rosette and he'd have been called a show pony. We're out of the Euros, but it didn't, and we're through, and now we're in the semi-finals. And for me, showing up to work, showing up to my business, showing up for Jodie, making sure I was there around my parents, showing up for the foundation. Just, I don't. It sounds really thing to call yourself brave, doesn't it? It sounds a bit big-headed,
Nah,
but
fucking do it, mate. Yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah.
just have that, just have that courage to walk out your door in the morning. Because to be honest, nothing anyone can throw at me now is as bad as what happened that day. Don't get me wrong. Like if I lost Albie, I lose Jodie, I lose my parents. It's going to be really shit, and it's going to be terrible. But I've proved to myself I can keep showing up. Like
Unfuckable, bro. Love it.
you just
What's
keep showing up. Yeah.
what's next on the agenda for you, Stuart?
Um, Trying to become a world class dad
Love it.
is one.
Great
Um,
goal.
we want to. I want to. So my mission with the charity is that, unfortunately, miscarriage and still we've actually just started working now with miscarriage, not just stillbirth. That was really important to me. So we've started working with those guys. But for me, first stage with the charity is if you have a stillborn child or a miscarriage, that Telford and Shrewsbury, Shropshire, my area, is the best place that could happen. So keep working with the amazing team at the hospital to provide things. Raise more money. I've got a big endurance week coming up in first week of October, 7 days of horrible stuff. And then also I'd like to do a live sort of talk. I don't want to call it a show, maybe a live talk on how losing my daughter became my superpower and maybe help some people through some mental health stuff, not just bereaved parents. So that I want a live show this year. And then kind of keep growing my business so that my little boy, me and Jodie have the most fun we can have. That's kind of where I'm going.
Mate, you're inspiring as fuck. Honestly, I've appreciated this
Thank you.
conversation. The final traditional question on the 100% podcast. I should have probably prepped you for this, but I'm going to do it anyway. What is the greatest bit of advice you've ever been given?
Ooh. Am I allowed to say two?
Yeah, of course you are, mate. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So one I don't need to say again. It was what my mentor said to me, um, on the day Ada was born. Stuff happens. Like it's up to you what meaning you attach to it, if any. And then I remember really clearly. It never made sense to me at the time. When I went to school in leaving in year 11 before I went into sixth form, we got our like we back then we didn't have iPads or anything like that. It was homework journals, and we got them signed by our teachers. And this has probably taken 25 years to sink in and to make sense to me. And I don't know whether it was just a bit of advice he gave to everybody or whether he knew me like this guy was some kind of wizard that knew me better than anybody's ever known me. And he just wrote, "Be true to thine's own self," was what he wrote in my thing. And I have through my life been a people pleaser, been somebody who will sacrifice my own, and I don't mean in a good way, but sacrifice my own happiness to keep other people happy
Mm.
and sacrifice the happiness of those close to me to keep other people happy by not being myself. And I really believe that ever since Ada was born, I've actually been myself because everything was stripped away. And I could only be myself. And I admitted my faults way more and I understood myself way more. And that piece of thing written in when I was like 16 in my homework journal, "Be true to thine own self," blows my mind. Like it still gives me a shiver when I think about it. Because like, did he know me that well that he knew that I was a bit of a fake and a bit of a fraud and a bit of a chameleon? Like I'd say one thing to one teacher to keep them happy, another thing to my mates, another thing to my mum and dad, just to keep everyone around me happy at the sacrifice of my own happiness. So that was quite deep, but there we go. That Mr.
Nah,
Banks
man.
was the name.
I think
Mr.
there are
Banks.
like before we wrap up, I do think there are people who pass us in our lives and you spend time with, even for a small amount of time that I may sound a bit hippy dippy, but I genuinely do believe they can see through you if you're
Mm.
not. And yeah, I think a comment like that in your book, I think the guy knew.
Yeah,
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 100%.
he probably knew me, but yeah,
Yeah.
shame it took 25 years to take his advice. But there we go. There we
But
go. But
it got in there eventually, mate. It got in there
yeah,
eventually. Stuart,
yeah.
honestly, I can genuinely say this has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Alliance member of the year, but not only that, inspirational person, like coming back from insane challenge. And I knew that you would put your message across in a very apt way today. But of course, like for me being the interviewer, you've made it insanely easy. Like you are an unbelievable guy. I take my hat off to you. If I can support you
Thank you.
in any way, please send me through the link to your charity. It will be in the
Yeah,
description on
amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
YouTube and it'll be on in Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well, so people can have a look. Where can people find you on social media as well?
Well, my Instagram is Stuart M Cain, M for mother or M for Matthew because that's my middle name. But Ada's Foundation UK is the charity, and my business is Hitsona, Hitsona. Is my business. But
And
I just
I'll
appreciate the chance to talk to people
Mate,
very
honestly, it's
much.
been great. It's been really good, and a few messages honed in for sure, and hopefully help some of the listeners as well with their own challenges. If you have enjoyed today's episode with me and Stuart, please go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and drop a 5-star review. It does go a long, long way to helping the show. And Stuart's accountability group, if you're listening, make sure you fucking go and do that for us.
Amazing. I'll get
And
on
if
to that.
yeah, yeah, and if you are watching on YouTube, hi, like and subscribe below. Again, it goes a long, long way to helping the algorithm. As we've spoken about on the podcast today, journaling goes a long, long way to supporting us in our lives and finding gratitude and keeping us thinking positively when we maybe need it the most. So the 100% journal is free for 14 days by clicking the link in the description on YouTube and Spotify as well. I'll be here with a new episode every Friday. Take care.